Last July, my son-in-law came by with his power bill in his hand, $391, 1 month. Then he saw mine sitting on the kitchen table, $9.40. Same town, same summer, same size house, built about the same year. I don't own an air conditioner. I haven't run one in 31 years. No ceiling fans, no box fans rattling in a window. Nothing in this house pulls a single watt of power to keep me cool. And I sleep under a blanket in the middle of August. My name is Jack Merrill. I was born in a farmhouse that never had a cooling machine in it. Not once, not ever. My father kept that house cool. His father kept it cool before him. And I've kept house the same way my whole life. The whole system I'm about to lay out for you cost me $4. Not $4 a month. $4 for the entire summer. $4 and about an hour of work spread across a season. Now here's the part that's going to bother some folks, and I'd rather say it plain. The reason most of you have never heard any of this isn't because it stopped working. It works exactly as well as it did in 1948. There's no money in teaching a man how to stay cool for free. Your power company doesn't mail you a friendly note in May saying, "Before you turn that thing on, try opening your windows at the right hour." The people who sell cooling machines don't run advertisements explaining how a farmhouse did the job for 150 years without one. Nobody profits when you stop buying. So the knowledge didn't get disproven. It just stopped being worth anything to anyone except you. Before we start, 2 things I want you looking forward to. I'm going to tell you about a trick my mother used on canning day. A wet bedsheet hung in a doorway that dropped the air in a room by 10 degrees for the cost of a bucket of water. And I'm going to tell you about the afternoon my father climbed up on our roof with a handsaw, and what he did up there took 20 degrees off the wall of my bedroom. And I'll be straight with you from the start, because I'd rather you trust me than be impressed by me. This does not work the same everywhere in this country. If you live where the air sits thick and wet for weeks at a time, one of these 6 is going to disappoint you. I'll tell you exactly which one and exactly what to do instead. I'm not going to pretend the old ways beat a heat wave that never breaks. But for most of us, most of the time, this works. It worked for 3 generations of my family, and it works in my house today. If you'd like more of the know-how that got left behind, subscribe and stay with me. That's all I'll ask of you today. Here's how I cool my whole house for $4. Most folks believe their house gets hot because the air outside is hot. That's a small piece of it. The big piece, the one nobody bothers to explain, is sunlight. Sunlight comes through your window glass. It lands on your floor, your table, your chair. Those surfaces soak it up and turn it into heat. And here's the trick the glass plays on you. It lets the light in, but it will not let that heat back out. Your sitting room turns into a greenhouse. It's the same reason a car parked in the sun climbs to 140 degrees inside when it's only 90 out on the street. Your walls do the same thing, only slower. A south wall soaks up sun from dawn until late afternoon, and by supper time that wall is still warm to the touch, pushing heat into your bedroom like a stove you never lit. My mother never used the word radiation. She called it the sun getting in. But she understood the fix better than any man who ever sold a cooling machine. You don't fight heat after it's in your house. You stop it at the door. Every one of the 6 things I'm about to show you comes out of that one idea. The first one is the most important, and it costs you nothing but the discipline to do it every single day. We called it the night flush. No matter how hard a day cooks, the ground lets go of its heat after dark. So when the sun dropped below the roofline, my father walked the whole house and opened every window. Not 1 or 2. Every one. He'd open them on opposite walls so the air had somewhere to go, and if you have an upstairs, you open one high and one low. The hot air lifts out the top and drags cool air in underneath it. Then you leave them open all night. That's the part that matters. You're not cooling the air, you're cooling the house itself. The plaster, the floorboards, the furniture. Cool all that heavy material down for 8 hours, and it holds that temperature deep into the next afternoon. A plaster wall that spent the night in 65-degree air won't climb back to 80 until well past noon. no matter what the thermometer says outside. And then the part everybody gets wrong. By 8 in the morning, you seal it up. Every window, every outside door, before the day starts building. You're trapping last night's cool inside. Your house becomes an icebox holding its temperature while the world outside climbs toward 90. I had a job in this, as a boy. There was an outdoor thermometer nailed to the porch post, and my father told me, the moment that needle quits falling and starts back up, you come get me. That was usually the quiet hour before dawn, sky still deep blue, birds only just thinking about it. I'd knock soft on their door and the two of us would walk the house shutting it down. Most people today run this backwards. They keep the house sealed all night with the machine grinding, then throw the windows open in the daytime because they want fresh air. That's putting money in the bank at sundown and pulling it all back out at noon. Here's the one I promised you. On the shaded side of the house, where we did want a little air moving, my mother hung what she called a weeping window. Take a thin cotton sheet, an old one, ready for the rag bag, or a couple yards of cheesecloth. That's your dollar. Soak it in cold water, wring it out until it's damp but not dripping, and hang it across a doorway or in a window opening where a little air is passing through. As that air works its way through the wet cloth, the water evaporates, and evaporation pulls heat straight out of the air. It's the same reason stepping out of a pond on a breezy day puts goosebumps on you in July. On a dry day, one damp sheet across a doorway takes 5 to 10 degrees off a room. You wet it again every couple of hours when it dries. That's the whole thing. I can still put myself back on that floor. Canning day, the stove going since dawn, and I'd lay out flat on the boards right in the path of that damp air with a stack of comic books. Outside you could see the heat shimmering up off the dirt road. Right there in that little stream of air it smelled like clean cotton and well water, and it was plain comfortable. Now here's where I keep my word to you. This is the one that disappoints. If you live somewhere the air is already full of water, the Gulf, the low country, a wet summer anywhere, the sheet won't dry fast enough to do much. The air's got no room left to take on moisture. Skip this one entirely and lean harder on the other 5. They carry the load just fine without it. The third one cost nothing but attention, and my grandmother was the master of it. She called it chasing the sun. The sun's direct rays carry the heat. Let them through a window and you may as well have lit a stove in that room. So you don't let them through. You move around the house all day staying one step ahead of it. Morning, the sun comes up in the east. Every curtain on that side is drawn tight, while the west side sits in shadow and can stay open for the light. Midday, the sun swings south and those stay shut. Then late afternoon, when it drops into the west and comes in low and mean around 4 o'clock, the hour that turns a bedroom into something you can't sleep in, you close the west side down. It leaves the house dim, but it's a cool dim. It feels like stepping into a church on a hot day. I can see her doing it. A small, determined woman walking the rooms with her hand flat against the plaster. She'd stop and say, "Feel that. The sun's trying to get in." And she'd pull another curtain. Here's the roof story I promised. If you've got an attic, you know what it's like up there in August. What most folks don't work out is that a baking attic is a heating blanket laid across the whole top of your house. That heat doesn't stay up there being somebody else's problem. It comes down through the ceiling into your bedroom, and it keeps coming down for hours after dark. My father got tired of it one brutal summer and said he was going to give the attic a hat. What he meant was a vent. Heat rises. That's the whole principle. All that hot air has nowhere to go, so it sits. He went up at the peak of the roof and cut in an opening with a screen over it to keep the birds out. Then he made sure there were gaps down low under the eaves so cooler air could get drawn in behind it. $3 of screen and an afternoon of his own labor. Suddenly the attic could breathe. The hot air went out the top and pulled cool air in the bottom, all on its own, no power, all day and all night. Like taking the lid off a pot. I remember the first night after. I was in my bed upstairs and around 11 o'clock I reached down and pulled a sheet over me. First time all summer. The ceiling over my head had quit radiating at me. That single change took close to 20 degrees off that upstairs wall. Of everything in this list, it's the one that did the most. Some of it wasn't about the house at all. It was about how you lived in it. In winter, that big iron cookstove was your best friend. In July, it was your enemy. Fire that thing up for a meal, and you've heated the whole house until bedtime. So the cooking moved outside. We had a small stove on the covered back porch, and from June to September, everything happened out there. The meals, the boiling, the canning. The smell of bread came in through the screen door. The wall of heat stayed outside where it belonged. Why would a man carry a bonfire into his own house on the hottest day of the year? And where the attic was the hottest place we had, the cellar was the coldest. Dug down into the ground, it held the same cool temperature all year. The earth doesn't care what the sky is doing. On the worst afternoons, my sister and I would take a lantern down there and sit on crates playing checkers. Cool air, smell of damp earth and potatoes and apples. World could be baking. Down there it was always the same. The last one is the slowest, and it's the one that outlives you. My grandfather thought in decades. He looked at that farmhouse, worked out where the afternoon sun hit hardest, the west and the south, and he planted trees. But not just any tree. He planted the kind that drops its leaves, and that's the clever part. In summer they carry a full canopy and shade the entire wall of the house. A living awning. Then in winter, exactly when you want the sun's warmth, they drop every leaf, and the bare branches let the low winter sun come straight through to warm your walls. A porch roof does the same job faster. An overhang on a south wall keeps the high summer sun from ever touching the siding, and that alone takes 15 to 20 degrees off the surface of that wall on a clear day. Look hard at any photograph of a house built before 1950. Deep porch on the south. Tall trees set close to the west wall. An arbor with vines by the kitchen door. Awnings over the bedroom windows. None of that was decoration. Every piece of it was engineering. Then somewhere in the 60s, builders worked out they could skip all of it and sell you a machine instead. Why pay for a deep porch when you can bolt a compressor to a concrete pad and let the homeowner pay to run it every month for 30 years? So they pushed the houses to the edge of the lot, took out the shade trees, dropped the porch and wired up the unit. Problem solved. For them, I told you I'd give you the straight version, so here it is. If you're somewhere the temperature sits above 110 for weeks, this system will bring your house down a great deal, but it may not get you all the way to comfortable on the very worst afternoons. One small unit in one room, running only during the peak hours, on top of everything I've shown you, will still cut your bill by better than half compared to cooling the whole house. If you rent, and you can't be cutting vents in anybody's roof, the night flush, chasing the sun, and moving your cooking outside cost nothing and change nothing about the building. Those three alone will do most of the work. And if anyone under your roof doesn't handle heat well, don't take an old man's word for anything. Speak to your doctor first. I'm somebody who's good with $1, not a physician. People say to me, if it were really that simple, everybody would know it. And I tell them the same thing every time. Everybody did know it. Every single generation before ours understood how a house was supposed to behave in summer. Then somebody worked out they could sell a machine to replace what folks already knew, and inside of one generation the knowing just went. It didn't get proven wrong. It didn't quit working. It only quit being profitable to anybody but you. Here's what I'd like you to do. This Saturday. Not next month. This Saturday. First, walk your house around 3 in the afternoon, with your hand out near each window. The warm ones are your problem. Write them down, 3 minutes. Second, tonight when the sun goes off the roof, open windows on opposite walls and leave them open. Set yourself something to remind you at 8 in the morning to shut it all up. Third, tomorrow pick your worst window and keep that curtain shut from noon onward. Just the one. See what it does. Fourth, find any way at all to throw shade on your west wall. An old sheet on a line. A board leaned against the siding. It doesn't have to be pretty this year. Fifth, cook something outside. Once. Notice what the kitchen feels like at 9 o'clock that night. Sixth, if your air is dry, soak a towel and hang it in a doorway and stand there a minute. Give it 1 week. Just one. Walk through at 3 o'clock on the 7th day and pay attention to how the house feels. Then at the end of the month, open that bill and look at the number. I've been looking at mine for 31 years and it still makes me smile every August. You tell me whether $4 was worth it. And do me a kindness. Leave me a comment with two things: what state you're in, and what your summer power bill looks like. I read every one of them. And if your mother or your grandmother had a way of keeping a house cool that I didn't cover today, I want to hear that most of all. That's how any of this survives. We hand it along. Next time I'll show you how I heat this same house all winter for under $10. Same idea. Opposite direction. Your grandparents knew. Now you know too.